Right, today we will probably complete this volume SD 48. Now we are going to chapter 15, Vekanasa Sutta. This is quite a short sutta, although it's from the Majjhima. The discourse to Vekanasa. The name of the person is Vekanasa. He's one of those ancient Indian teachers who came to meet the Buddha. And this is from Majjhima, or MAT. Although this is from the Majjhima Sutta, it's quite a short sutta actually. So we're on page 191. Now imagine the Buddha living in India 2,500 years ago. So we're talking about a very rich time spiritually, intellectually, and in other ways. People are looking for the truth. In some ways it's like Singapore today, very successful, very busy, very rich. The country is becoming peaceful because the great kings were conquering a lot of country, and there is widespread, there is war, but also peace that follows after that. In fact, we might say Asoka's empire started during that period, the foundation of the great empire of India. So imagine a place like Singapore today, although people here are very rich, we're also very stressful. We have been nominated a misery city, a misery country. So money doesn't make us happy at all. But money certainly, when we have wealth and we have things that we want, then we begin to ask questions, is it enough? Is it what we want? Is there something else more meaningful? When we talk about prayer, another side of it is when you actually get what you pray for. After that you found that's not what you want. You want something else. So you're never satisfied. So this is the time in the Buddha's days when people are asking all kinds of questions. Meaning of life, what am I doing here, are there gods, things like that. So imagine the Buddha meets all kinds of people. And this is one of those very colorful teachers. He's one of those very interesting characters who has this opinion of what beauty is. At least he thinks he knows what beauty is. Alright, so let's find out how did this interview proceed, alright? But yeah, before that, one more thing about Vekanasa. These people who meet the Buddha, many of them are very famous teachers. And then later they became Buddhist monks, or sometimes they remain as lay people. I think in the case of Vekanasa, he probably remained as a lay person. The Vekanasa actually is a name of a religious group, and later on it's a name also used by the Vaishnavas in India. And interestingly, the god Vishnu is quite closely related to Buddhism, although we know Vishnu is a Hindu god. So there is, of course, we do not know what happened after Vekanasa became a follower of the Buddha. But we know that he benefited from the teaching, and this teaching is very interesting. It tells a lot about a person. In fact, it can tell a lot about us anyway, because the suttas is not just about somebody. Remember, when we study the sutta, it's not it's not a comprehension passage. We study the sutta to change ourselves. Being a Buddhist is about knowing yourself, learning to be peaceful, learning to be happy, learning to discover yourself. In other words, we change. We must go to a happy change. Becoming a Buddhist is not about just knowing the Four Noble Truths or knowing the Eightfold Path. It is useful theories, yes. But a lot of other people today know all these things. In fact, you find today there are many experts on Buddhism, and many of them are not even Buddhists. They're called scholars. Even right now, even last week actually, there is a very wonderful course going on. One of those Coursera things. It's called Buddhism and Modern Psychology, run by Robert Wright in the Princeton University. And he's presenting Buddhism from the point of view of evolutionary psychology. It's amazing how he talks about it. In other words, he's saying that if you look at Buddhism from the scientific point of view, it's possible to use science to prove it. Scientific point of view is what we have been doing here. We have been doing the meditation, for example, the Four Noble Truths. So we have people today who are scholars talking about Buddhism, teaching Buddhism even. And of course he says he meditates also. He meditates every day, a few minutes. Because he doesn't say that, people will say, how do you know Buddhism if you don't meditate, for example. So today, kind of, mind training is a very important aspect of Buddhism. So in this sutta, we see this mind training, learning about yourself, discovering about yourself, right? Right, so let's look at page 196. The Discourse to Vekanasa, M80. M80 is the unique number of this sutta. If you can't remember, you say, oh, I can't remember the name, it's a long name. Remember M80. M is Majjhima. M means middle length teachings. Page 196. Thus have I heard. So this is Ananda talking. Just remember this teaching. At one time, the Blessed One was staying in Anathapindika's park in Jeta's Grove near Savatthi. This is somewhere in the central Gangetic plain, northern India. Then the wanderer Vekanasa approached the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. Okay, so Vekanasa is a wanderer. A wanderer is, today we call him a hippie, put it simply. No? In fact, it's a perfect word, perfect translation. A wanderer, he wanders about. He decides to leave home. He may be religious or not religious. In a sense, even today in India, we see these wanderers. I mean, in India, even today, if you can't get a job, you just, there you don't shave your hair, you keep your hair long, don't wash it, wear something yellow, orange, and you look for somewhere where there's a crowd, where all these holy men wait, and you just go there, and then you get your free food every day. It's still going on, this tradition. This is amazing. The spirituality has been there for thousands of years. And if you're famous in talking and thinking, you can start your own religion. You become a sadhu, you become a bhagavan, whatever you want to call yourself. So, but the Buddha is very good in knocking down this kind of people. So this is one story where you see, in a sense, the Buddha putting things right. Vekanasa is okay. He's quite a interesting guy in the sense that he has this idea of beauty. He says, oh, I believe in this, something beautiful. He is said to be, those holy men, he's like a hippie guru, who is a part-time holy man. I mean, he's a holy man, but at the same time he's enjoying sensual pleasures, In fact, earlier on, in this sutta, we were studying about someone else. This another, what's his name, the holy man? He's Kenya, his name is Kenya. In the daytime, he wears his matted hair, this big hairstyle. He wears a yellow robe and he's a holy man. But at night, he takes off his robes and he's a family man. And he has some devotees also. So there's a story about him in the Sela Sutta. So he meets the Buddha, makes offerings to the Buddha. Now the sutta says that he became this kind of holy man to escape the pillage of kings. In simple modern terms, is to evade taxes. And he's not alone, by the way. There are at least 3 of them, and this is the 3rd one. So this is a very interesting insight we get when we study the sutta, the kind of situation that is in India, right? So here, this Vekanasa, he has this idea of beauty. Now let's find out what happens now. So he meets the Buddha, exchanges greetings. Here again, we see this very cordial kind of relationship in India, where people are very respectful of one another, they ask questions, they learn, and if this teacher teaches something wonderful and they believe this teacher is right, they will follow this teacher. There is no cheating, no lying. Today you find if an evangelist comes to you, it's just a one-way traffic. It just stops you and you have no chance of really having any discussion. Right? But not in India, in the Buddha's time especially. It is a wonderful way of, people are seeking the truth. 2.2, standing thus at one side, he uttered this udana. Udana is an inspired utterance, a joyful statement to the Blessed One. this is perfect beauty, this is perfect beauty. Okay, this is a typical guru statement. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's just saying something really profound, he thought. Then the Buddha questions him, but what is this Kachana, so his family name is Kachana, that you speak of thus? This is perfect beauty, this is perfect beauty. What Kachana is perfect beauty? So the Buddha is saying, define your terms. What are you talking about? You say perfect beauty, what is it? 2.4. That perfect beauty, Master Gautama, is the beauty that is surpassed neither by anything better nor by anything more sublime. Right? So, starting going about the bush, he says, oh, this perfect beauty, there's nothing beyond it. So the Buddha says, what is it? Right? And he can't say more than that. Then the Buddha makes this remark, okay, number 3. This matter, Kachana, could indeed go on for a long while. He says, now we're going to have quite a long discussion because you are not defining what you believe in. Right? You say that perfect beauty, Master Gautama, is the beauty that is surpassed neither by anything better nor by anything more sublime. But you have not defined what beauty is. So in other words, it's not saying anything. Then the Buddha gives an analogy, a parable. He says, Kachana, it is just as if a man were to say, I desire and love the most beautiful girl in the country, right? I want to marry the most beautiful woman in the world, even if you like. And then when you ask this person, can you describe this girl? How does she look like? Tall, short, fat, thin? And you say, I don't know. No, I don't know. So how are you going to find this most beautiful girl in the world when you don't even know what you're looking for? Right? So this is the first parable. This is the parable the Buddha often uses, especially with those priests who like to talk about the God idea. He says, oh, Brahma is great, creator of the world. Then the Buddha asks, have you seen this God? Have you met this God? Right? So it's just like talking about this beautiful girl in the world, but you have not seen her, even met her, so your statements are groundless. So the Buddha goes on, look at 3.5. Even so, Kachana, you say there's this perfect beauty and so on. Last line, but you have not defined what beauty is. Then Vikanasana replies. He says, look at number 4 then. He says, Master Gautama, just as if there were a beautiful beryl gem of purest water, 8-faceted, well polished and cut or well worked, lying on red woolen blanket, glows, radiates and shines. Of such radiance is the self that survives death unimpaired. So now he makes a very interesting statement. He says, okay, he's not talking about beauty as before. Maybe this is what he thinks beauty is. He said, imagine there's this beautiful semi-precious stone. Beryl is a kind of semi-precious stone, it's kind of clear. And in the ancient texts, like to say, you put this beautiful jewel on a piece of red blanket to show the beauty of the jewel. So it says this jewel is radiant and bright and beautiful. And so it says also the self that is reborn is radiant like this jewel. So it's kind of a little confusing here, saying something else. No? Then the Buddha asked him, this is the section on the glowworm. No? What do you think, Gachana? This beryl gem of the purest water, 8-faceted, got 8 sides, well polished and well cut, well worked, lying on a red woolen blanket, it glows, radiates and shines. Or a glowworm, which is brighter. Yeah? The light given by this glass-like semi-precious stone, or the glowworm when it is very dark at night, which is brighter. Of course, here we are supposed to understand that this glass is not really that bright. It's just a normal kind of precious stone. It's not diamond, definitely. Okay. In Europe, in ancient times, they used it to make like spectacles, to kind of magnify things. So, of course, here we can answer is to say the firefly or the glowworm is brighter because in the night you see this glowworm is very bright. Okay. Then The Buddha say, okay, but if you compare the glowworm with an oil lamp, we're talking about ancient India. We don't think about modern times. No, modern times we got electricity and so on. So it's a different situation. So it says, imagine the glowworm. You can see the glowworm is very bright. The firefly is very bright because it's very dark all around. What about a lamp? If you have a lamp, is the lamp brighter than the glowworm or the glowworm brighter? Of course, it's the lamp. See, it says definitely the oil lamp is brighter because if you put the oil lamp, it brightens up the room. At least you can see better than just the glowworm. So then the Buddha goes on like that. Then he's trying to make this, awaken us understand the nature of comparative intensity of brightness, of comparison. Then number 7. Okay, it says, what do you think, Achana? Okay, you have this oil lamp which is very bright at night, but suppose you have a bonfire, big bonfire in the open, this big fire with pile of wood and the fire is burning, which is brighter? Of course, the bonfire. So again here, Vikanasa agrees. And then the Buddha goes on. He says, okay, what do you think, Jana? Number 8. You may think that this great fire, bonfire, is bright, but what about the morning star at dawn? And the sky is clear without any rain clouds and cloudless. Now, this is one of the most beautiful explanations in Indian literature, The sky, clear, rain clouds, cloudless, and there the morning star is shining. The morning star, of course, is Venus. Now, the impression I get is this: in Buddha's time, Venus is very bright, I mean, nowadays you see it's not very bright. One reason is because of city lights. Our Earth is very bright now, so the stars are less bright. So here, according to the Buddha, it says the morning star is much brighter. Now, of course, here, morning star at dawn, not when the sun's already up, before the sun is up. So you can see this morning star very bright. Okay. Again, there are no street lights like today. No city lights like today. So you got to imagine this kind of beautiful natural wonder. Right? So the Buddha is telling us all these things. So of course, Vikanasa, being a sensible man up to this point, he says, yeah, of course, this morning star is much brighter than even the bonfire at night, because by now the sky is lighting up already. Then the Buddha said, okay, now something else. What about you compare this morning star to the full moon? You compare to the full moon, which is brighter? Of course, the full moon is much brighter. And then, okay, so you say the full moon is much brighter? What about the noon sun itself? The bright sun at noon. Look at number 10. It says, the full moon at midnight in the clear sky without a rain cloud, cloudless, on the Uposatha is the 15th day, or the sun at noon in a clear sky without a rain cloud, cloudless in autumn, the last month of the rains. This will be around November, right? October, November, autumn. Which of these two gives off a radiance that is greater and more sublime? Of course, it's the, in this case, it will be the noon sun. Then the Buddha goes on, says there's even something brighter than the noon sun. Look, at those days they believe in the gods. So they say, well, there are the gods. The gods these gods are the lower heavens, and these gods are even brighter than the sun. So now comes the clincher, The Buddha says, okay, now that you understand the scale of brightness, you see, when you talk about this beauty, it's just like the glowworm. It's not really very helpful. Because you see, this Vikanasa, he believes his idea of beauty is pleasure, right? Then the Buddha goes on. The Buddha kind of read his mind, and the Buddha says, section 12, there are Gacchana, these 5 causes of sense pleasures. What are they? 5 causes of sense pleasures. The 5 are our 5 senses. Here the Buddha is referring to 5 experiences we go through in our daily life. And these 5 experiences are what, if we wrongly misunderstand them, bring us suffering. Number one, forms cognized by the eye that are desirable, agreeable, pleasurable, lovable, connected with sensual desire, arousing lust. Then there are sounds cognizable by the ear that are desirable, and so on. Then smells cognizable by the nose. Tastes cognized by the tongue. Touches cognized by the body that are desirable, and so we desire them. So these kachana are the 5 chords of sensual pleasure. Now kachana, physical pleasure and mental joy arise dependent on these 5 chords of sense pleasure. This is called sense pleasure, right? So another sense pleasure arises from the 5 senses. Thus, the sense pleasure arises on account of sensuality, in other words, a sensual object. But beyond sensual pleasure, there is a sensuality that is the peak of sense pleasure. This is called the peak. Okay, this is the deep statement the Buddha is making now, very different from what he said earlier. He says, all this wonderful sensual pleasure you're enjoying, there is something which is beyond this, and this is called the peak, the best sensual pleasure, or the best joy. At this point, Vikanasa gets very excited. He thinks that the Buddha actually is subscribing to his idea. The Buddha is not finished talking, so he's got so excited, he interrupts the Buddha. He cuts short what the Buddha is talking. It's one of those rare occasions you find someone who dares do that. In fact, he's so excited he couldn't control himself. He thought that Buddha actually agrees with him. 14. When this was said, the wanderer Vikanasa said this to the Blessed One. It is wonderful, Master Gautama. It is marvelous, Master Gautama. How well said this is by Master Gautama, right? That you have said, wow, there's a sensual pleasure and there's something beyond this which is called the peak, the highest sensual pleasure. Then the Buddha corrects him. 14.2. Kachana, it is hard for one holding a different view, keeping a different priority, holding a different personal preference or under a different influence, keeping to a different practice, following a different teaching to understand sensuality or sensual object or sense pleasure in the peak of sense pleasure. Except for those monks, Kachana, who are arhats, whose influxes are destroyed, who have lived a holy life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached their own goal, destroyed the fetters of being, and are completely liberated through final knowledge. So what the Buddha is saying, only if you are totally enlightened, you will know what this sensual pleasure, this real sense pleasure is, or this real pleasure is, the peak of pleasure. So in other words, the Buddha here, of course, we know, we studied the sutras before, we know the Buddha is talking about dhyana, is talking about nirvana even. But Vikanasa is only talking about physical pleasure, so he misunderstood the Buddha. So he got very upset now, because he realized the Buddha actually is not supporting his ideas. Now this is very interesting, because people who get caught up with sensual pleasures will easily get upset, get angry. So they have happy emotion, they also have negative emotions. 15. When this was said, the wanderer was angry and displeased at the Blessed One, and he reviled, disparaged, and censured the Blessed One, saying, the recluse Gautama will be proven wrong, or will be worsted. Yeah? So this is his thinking. He says, I'm going to prove him wrong. Then he said to the Blessed One, said to the Buddha, so then there are some recluses and Brahmin who who, without knowing the past, without seeing the future, would then claim thus, destroy this birth, the holy life has been lived, in other words, to declare they are awakened, they are enlightened, without knowing any rebirth. Okay? So that this is false and laughable, isn't it? So he's saying that you must know that rebirth then, if you don't know rebirth, how can you claim all this? The Buddha replies, section 16, if according to you, Kachana, those recluses or Brahmins who, not knowing the past, not seeing the future, claim that they have destroyed all their defilements, they are awakened, they have attained nirvana, they can indeed be reasonably censured. But, Kachana, let the past be, let the future be. So now the Buddha says, Of course, these people, if they claim falsely, of course you can say they're wrong, in a sense, there's no way you can know whether someone's claim is right or not. So let's just put all that aside, okay? Let's not bother about whether somebody can see the future or not, see the past or not. It's not very helpful anyway. The Buddha now declares his famous challenge. He says, look at 16.3. Let an intelligent person, honest, trustworthy, upright, come to me, and I will instruct, I will teach him the Dharma, such that practicing which he would in no long time know and see for himself. He will see recluseship. Recluseship means the holy life. Thus, indeed, there is full or right liberation from the bonds, that is the bonds of ignorance. Then the Buddha gives an analogy. He says, suppose Gacchana, a tender boy child, an infant lying on his back, is bound by the 5 bond strings, with the 5th around his neck. Right? These are ropes tied. The prisoner is tied with 4 ropes, one on each leg, one on each arm, and then the 5th on the neck. So this person cannot move. So this baby is tied. So and this baby is growing. So following the growth and maturing of his faculties, he would be free from the strings. He would know, I'm free and be without bondage. So as you may tie the child down, keep the child safe, but as the child grows big and strong, the child will be able to free himself. In the same way, Gacchana, let an intelligent man come to me. So the Buddha says, if you're really honest, you really want to learn, you come to me, you learn, I will teach you. So it's just like a child. As a child grows, you'll break free from the 5 bonds. Okay? So here again, the Buddha is hinting the 5 bonds refers to the 5 sensual pleasures. You can rise above it. You can attain awakening. You can be free from suffering. Right? So this was enough. Vivekananda is very happy. So he says, 17, second line, excellent, Master Gautama, excellent. Just as if one were to place upright what had been overturned, or were to reveal what was hidden, or were to show the way to one who was lost, or were to hold up a lamp in the dark, so that those with eyes could see forms. In the same way, in numerous ways, the Dharma has been made clear by Master Gautama. I go to Master Gautama for refuge, to the Dharma and to the community of monks. May Master Gautama remember me as a lay follower who is gone for refuge from this day forth for life. So he becomes a lay follower. I think he didn't become a streamer, that was someone else. So here he just kind of declared the Buddha as his teacher. So here we see, in other words, here in a sense the Buddha was successful in inviting this person to learn under him. We're not told what happens after that. But there are cases where the Buddha makes this invitation and says, well, if you're honest, you come to me, I'll teach you, you can be sure you find some peace and happiness. But here, this person responded. Okay, so this is the first sutta.